The Calabash Day Centre is not just a building, it is a living testament to a community's resilience. For decades, it has stood in Lewisham as a vital sanctuary, specifically created for the elders of the Windrush generation and the wider Black, Asian, and minority ethnic community. Established in 1985, its very inception was an act of recognition. It acknowledged that these elders, who had contributed so much to Britain, deserved a space where they felt seen, heard, and most importantly, safe. This was not about providing just any service. It was about providing the right service in the right way for a community with unique experiences and needs. The centre's name itself, Calabash, evokes a sense of cultural belonging and nourishment. The visionaries behind Calabash, Cecile Murray, and the former Lewisham leader Andy Hawkins understood something fundamental. They saw the gaps left by mainstream services, gaps that often felt like deliberate exclusions to the elders who tried to navigate them. Their proactive efforts in establishing Calabash were a direct response to this failing. They weren't simply patching a hole, they were laying a new foundation. This foundation was built on the principle that cultural identity is not an afterthought in care, but central to it. They aimed to create a space where elders could thrive, not just survive, surrounded by understanding and shared heritage, a place that felt like an extension of home. Within its walls, Calabash cultivated an atmosphere explicitly designed for cultural safety and affirmation. For many of its users, it was the first place they felt truly comfortable to be themselves, to share stories in their own languages, to enjoy familiar foods, music, and activities without fear of judgment or misunderstanding. This was a space where the shared history of migration, the challenges of settling in a new country, and the pride in their cultural heritage were not just tolerated but celebrated. It became a hub of activity, offering everything from seated exercise classes and arts and crafts to simple, vital companionship, all delivered with a deep understanding of its users' backgrounds. Now, this carefully constructed legacy faces an unsettling future. Lewisham Council has announced a new consultation regarding adult social care services, and the familiar anxieties have resurfaced with a chilling intensity. The community fears that these proposals, cloaked in the language of broader service provision, could dilute Calabash's specific mission. The very essence of what makes Calabash special, its dedicated focus on the Windrush generation and BAM elders, feels threatened. This is not just about a building or services, it's about preserving a promise made to a generation that has already endured so much, a promise of a place to call their own. In May 2025, Lewisham Council dropped news of a new consultation. It concerns adult social care services across the entire borough. On the surface, consultation sounds reasonable, even positive. But for the community deeply connected to the Calabash Day Centre, these words landed like a warning shot. The announcement immediately reignited profound fears that have simmered for years, about the centre's long-term security and its unique purpose. Past experiences have taught this community to be wary. They know that sometimes behind bureaucratic language lies the potential for devastating change, particularly for services tailored to specific, often marginalized groups. This new consultation feels like history repeating itself, a familiar dread descending once more. The heart of the community's concern lies in the interpretation of the Council's intentions. There is a strong perception that this consultation is a veiled maneuver, an attempt to dilute the Calabash Day Centre's original vital mission. The concern is that under the seemingly benign banner of inclusivity and borough-wide services, the centre's specific dedication to the elders of the Windrush generation could be eroded, effectively erased. Forcing Calabash to become a generic centre for all would, in the eyes of its users and supporters, be a profound betrayal. It would ignore the very reasons it was established, to provide a culturally specific haven that other, more general centres failed to offer them. Adding to the growing unease is a significant and troubling detail regarding the consultation process itself. The date provided by the Council for a key consultation event was listed as Tuesday 29th May. However, a quick check of the calendar reveals a stark discrepancy. The 29th of May 2025 is in fact a Thursday. This error, whether a simple oversight or something more calculated, has been challenged. The community awaits a response from the council, but the incident has already sown seeds of distrust. For many, it feels less like an administrative slip-up and more like an indication of carelessness, or worse, a subtle tactic to confuse and disengage those most affected. This perceived pattern of undermining is not new. The community feels that the council's actions, or sometimes inactions, over the years have consistently chipped away at the unique identity and the hard-won security of the Calabash Centre. Each proposal, each review, each period of uncertainty creates immense stress and anxiety for the elders who rely on Calabash and for the wider community that champions its existence. It feels like a constant battle to protect a space that should be cherished and supported unequivocally. The fight for Calabash is not just about services, it's about respect, recognition, and the right to culturally appropriate care for a pioneering generation. To truly understand the fierce loyalty and protective stance towards the Calabash Day Centre, one must look back. One must understand the social landscape that existed for Black, Asian, and minority ethnic elders, particularly those of the Windrush generation, before its doors opened. In the decades following their arrival in Britain, many faced pervasive racism and profound exclusion, not just in employment and housing, but also in social and welfare services. Mainstream day centres, theoretically open to all, were often unwelcoming, culturally alienating, and sometimes overtly hostile environments. Their dietary needs were ignored, their languages unspoken, their cultural references misunderstood or dismissed. This wasn't an occasional issue, it was a systemic failing. This environment of exclusion was the direct catalyst for the creation of Calabash. It wasn't born from a desire for preferential treatment, but from a desperate need for basic dignity and culturally sensitive care. Cecile Murray and Andy Hawkins recognized that these elders were being failed, that their well-being was compromised by services that did not see them, let alone cater to them. Calabash was, therefore, a necessary community-driven intervention. It was a proactive assertion that BAME elders deserved better, a space where they would not be marginalized, but celebrated, where their life experiences were understood and their cultural heritage formed the bedrock of the support offered. It was an act of creating safety where none had previously existed. Calabash is therefore infinitely more than just a physical building providing daycare services. It stands as a powerful symbol of resilience, self-determination, and community love. It embodies the spirit of a generation that faced adversity with grace and built institutions to support its own. While it offered practical activities like seated exercise classes, arts and crafts, and vital social interaction, as noted when Voluntary Services Lewisham volunteers provided transport, it did so within a context that was deeply resonant and affirming. The true value lay in the unspoken understanding, the shared laughter, the culturally familiar rhythms that permeated every aspect of its operation, supporting even those with disabilities and dementia. This is why the argument for general inclusivity by merging Calabash into a generic service model fundamentally misses the point and feels like a step backward. Simple physical access to a building is not true access if the environment within it remains alienating or fails to meet specific cultural needs. The Windrush generation and other BAM elders sought refuge and affirmation in Calabash precisely because general services were inadequate. The need for such a dedicated, culturally specific environment has not diminished with time. If anything, as this generation ages further, its importance is amplified. To dismantle that specificity is to ignore the lessons of history and the lived experience of the community. The current threat to the Calabash Day Centre is not an isolated incident. It echoes past battles fiercely fought by the community. Many will recall November 2019, when Lewisham Council reaffirmed a deeply unpopular decision. The plan then was to merge Calabash with Cinnamon Court in Deptford and Cedar Court in Grove Park, moving all services into the Calabash building in Hither Green. While this was framed as a way to save £139,000 and consolidate resources, the devastating consequence was clear. The BAME elderly community would lose its only dedicated adult day centre in Lewisham. Calabash would no longer be primarily for them, its unique identity effectively erased in the name of efficiency. The 2019 merger decision provoked strong and immediate opposition. Community groups, service users and concerned councillors like Juliet Campbell and Carol Howard voiced grave concerns. They highlighted that the initial decision appeared to have been fast-tracked, with insufficient and inadequate consultation with the wider African-Caribbean community. A key criticism was that most consultation events were held during daytime hours, with only 2 out of 16 scheduled after 5 p.m., effectively excluding many working people and family carers from participating. Councillor Howard also pointed to the disproportionate impact of deprivation on BAME groups, making such dedicated services even more critical. Then Mayor Damien Egan had even stated there was no threat to Calabash, a promise now ringing hollow for many. Now, facing a new wave of uncertainty, the community is once again preparing to make its voice heard. An action day has been planned for Saturday, 7 June 2025. This crucial event, supported by organisations like GalaxiaFiWay.net, aims to mobilise widespread community support and demonstrate unified opposition to any changes that would dilute or destroy Calabash's specific mission. It is a call to gather, to share information, to strategise and to send an unequivocal message to Lewisham Council. Calabash is not just a line item in a budget, it is a lifeline for many, a cherished institution built on a legacy of care and cultural understanding. The fight to preserve Calabash is a fight for its soul, for the principle that culturally specific services for vulnerable elders are not a luxury but a necessity. The community and its allies are urged to stand in solidarity. This means attending the Action Day, contacting local councillors, sharing information, and ensuring that the voices of the Windrush generation elders are central to any decisions made about their future. The legacy of Cecile Murray and Andy Hawkins, and the well-being of the elders Calabash serves, depend on this collective effort. Calabash must be preserved, not just as bricks and mortar, but as the vibrant, specific and essential sanctuary it was always meant to be.